You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. This is your host. My name is Mo. And today I am doing a solo episode and I've taken in some questions from the audience. The audience being mostly when I post things like this, I put it on Instagram stories and then it moves over to Facebook stories. And so I just asked a question a couple weeks ago because it's been a minute since I've recorded a podcast, and I asked, what would you like to hear me talk about more? And so I got 4 different questions. And so thank you to those of you that responded. I really do read every single message, every single response that I get is a fantastic way for me to gain feedback from you guys. And so after listening to this episode or during, if you find that you have follow-up questions or there's a topic that comes to mind that you're like, I wish Margaret would just riff on this, or what if she could bring this person on as a guest? I would love to hear their story, hear them talk about this more. So if that stuff comes to mind, please go ahead and shoot me an email, mo@iloveitwhen.org, or just shoot me a message on social media, as I really do listen. So the questions that we're going to dig into today are really awesome, thought-provoking, interesting questions. The first one is, how can you tell the difference between inspired action and not inspired action? The second one is how to bounce back after feeling overwhelmed or not having the bandwidth, and how to not self-shame in this process. The third one is going to be a good challenge for me. It was, please explain quantum theory. So this will be great coming from someone who's not a scientist. And then the fourth one was healing money wounds, how to heal a money wound. And so I'll talk a little bit more about what a money wound is as well. And then I just put down to pull a card for whoever's listening as well. I'm going to pull a card for you guys from my favorite energy oracle deck for the rest of our time here in December. So thank you again for those of you that are listening, that if you submitted a question or a topic, I really do appreciate it, because I like kind of tapping into what people are thinking about right now and what we're struggling with, what we're having success with, all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to dig into, how can you tell the difference between inspired action and not inspired action first? So I talk about this a lot in relation to manifesting, because as I've talked about before on this podcast, I believe in slowing down to speed up. So I often talk about how I have really slowed down so much in my life compared to when I worked in a 9-to-5 job specifically. And that has thus affected my personal life and everything else. And so if you think about, for example, a list of like 10 things you want to do this week, if taking inspired action is looking at that list of things and discovering, prioritizing that item on the list that you feel most inspired to take action on, that will actually move you forward faster. So, like I often say, it might take 10 steps to reach an end goal. What if you could just take 3 of those steps, but it would get you that same distance of 10 steps out? So you're able to do less work. Essentially, it's less doing, more being, but you're still going the same distance. So, as an example, I wanted to share something that's coming up for me. So I keep having this thought pop into my head that, and you'll probably see this from me soon, about having another retreat here in the local Pacific Northwest area. So I have an idea in my mind. I have some people that I want to invite as speakers, and this feels really exciting. And it also feels a little bit like, ooh, like when should I do it? There's a little bit of anxiety with it as well, but it's mostly exciting because I love retreats and they always get me exciting. At the same time, I have thoughts about, oh, I should probably post more to social media. I should work on my website. I should figure out more about SEO. I could edit a podcast. I could work on my reflection for the 2024 year. I could create some marketing materials. These are all actions and things that I want and need to do. But if I look at it from an inspired action perspective, the one that I know that would move my business forward and that feels most inspired, meaning like it dropped into my head and it feels exciting, is the retreat one. It's a little bit scary and a little bit inspired. And so I instantly know, like, this is something I need to take action on. And by doing this, it will actually move me forward faster. It's actually 3:33 as I'm saying this right now. And so this is how I look at my weeks. This is how I prioritize on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It does not mean that I ignore doing the things that I don't want to do. It just means that I'm constantly looking at my list and saying, do I really have to do that? Or am I doing that because someone else has told me I need to do that? You know, like posting to social media, I've really have changed a lot about how I utilize social media because I used to be in charge of it at my previous job. And so I think I got real used to being in that habit of you need to be on a schedule. You need to post, multiple times a day. You should, you should. And I've really moved more of my approach to what do I feel like sharing today? Uh, and only sharing when I feel called to. And I'm not on a schedule. I've tried to put myself on a schedule so many times, and it always feels dead, uninspiring, and not delicious. So, this is what I mean about inspired action versus non inspired action. That inspired action also has a tendency to just drop into your head at the most random of times, like, hey, call this person. Hey, go to that coffee shop. Hey, uh, this sounds like something delicious you should eat today. It's really more random, spontaneous, and it feels fun. So that's how I tell the difference between inspired action and not inspired action is what feels good in my body and what feels exciting right now. And then I work in those other things, like obviously looking at my finances, although I've changed how I feel about that. It doesn't always feel exciting or inspired. But what I will say is that when I look at my finances and I spend the time each week that I have set aside to look at them, I have something on my calendar every Sunday that says manifest abundance. And that is an hour set aside every week to look at where I'm at financially and get really clear on what I'm working with. And that brings me a sense of clarity and peace so that then I can make better informed decisions that week about my finances. And so that might not feel like inspired action, but it's consistent action that brings me a lot of peace. And so hopefully that helps you kind of gauge what I mean by inspired action and how you can tell the difference. If you have any follow-up questions about this, please reach out. All right, so now I want to hop into the second question, how to bounce back. This was a great one. How to bounce back after feeling overwhelmed or not having the bandwidth, and how to not self-shame. I mean, drop the mic right here. For the person that submitted this, this is such a fantastic question because I believe we all struggle with this, and sometimes it's not the hottest topic to talk about, right? So I'm going to share with you just like what came to mind. I took some notes as I was thinking about these questions, and so the first thing I would say is I would pause my thoughts on my desire to bounce back, and I would first start with a question: what brought me to this point of overwhelm? I want to look at my schedule when this happens and see where my boundaries start to slide. What did I say yes to where I should have said no? Let's first look at what caused this overwhelm. So rather than focusing on the bouncing back and getting back into it and getting back to that place where you feel like you're supposed to be, what caused this overwhelm? Because if we don't know what caused us to get to this place, it's more likely that we'll slip right back into this. And so I find that whenever I get to this point, I really look at what brought me here because typically I said yes to something I should have said no to because my energy was probably waning and I wanted to either please someone else by attending something or participating in something, or I felt like if I just did this one last thing, it would have a positive impact on my business or whatever it was. I was overextending myself. And so we don't want to just bounce back without looking at what brought us to this point. Overwhelm happens when we've taken on too much. So the next question I ask myself is, why are you thinking you want to and can take on this load? Why does it feel like carrying this load of work or this schedule that you want to bounce back to? Why does this feel like what you're supposed to be doing in order to be successful? So that's the first thing I would look at. And then something I also always look at is my frequency and my energy. If I'm looking to shift my energy, I know I need to move my body. So if I'm feeling stuck and okay, I've identified the root of why I'm feeling overwhelmed. I said yes to 3 events as an example last week that I should have said no to because I knew I was tired. I knew I wasn't just being, uber introverted. I was actually tired. And so I should have followed that truth and stayed home. So once I realized, okay, this is why I shifted into overwhelm and why I needed to like stop everything and rest and sleep. And so then I look at, okay, now to start to move myself out of this place, I've rested. I've taken as much time as I need, more than I usually think I need to rest. And then I start to look to shift my energy. And I know that energy is emotions in, I'm not saying it right. Emotions is energy and movement. That's not it totally, but essentially, if you want to shift your mood or shift your emotions, you need to move your energy. And so I look at, okay, I'm going to go for a walk today. I'm going to open the windows up in my house because when you open the windows up and the wind blows through, you're literally moving energy through your house, you're clearing it out. And then I usually get out my sage and I'll sage my house, or I'll go into different rooms in my house and just clap, literally like that. When you clap, the frequency from your the sound of your hands clapping literally vibrates out and can clear the space. I also put on some music. I love these Tibetan bells that my friend Crystal Novak shared with me, Tibetan bells for clearing negative energy. I'll have that playing the whole time. And so I'll clear my house, clear myself with selenite and or sage, and then I'll go for a walk or do some yoga. And just changing my frequency like this gets those emotions starting to move and shift out of my body, which is what we want. And so this will all of this will help you start to shift back into an energy of balance and back to where you'll feel more motivation and inspiration, hopefully, to continue to do whatever it is that you do. Now, to talk about how not to self shame. So, again, the first thing, whenever I find myself speaking to myself in like a negative manner, I get curious. So rather than saying, "Oh God, Margaret, why are you doing that?" Like I'll catch myself saying something negative about my body or something negative about my life, or just feeling like in a downward spiral, right? Which happens every once in a while because I'm human. And we're never, I think a lot of people expect that we remain at this high place of happiness and joy, and that that's what our life should look like all the time. And that's actually not realistic at all. And so I will actually, at times when I need to, have a conversation with that feeling. So, for this example of shame, I would go into a meditation, just means like, hey, let me see if I have 15 minutes of quiet space in my day. I'll turn off the lights in my office, sit in the corner, and just imagine that emotion in front of me as a shape and have a conversation with it as if it's a person. I'll ask, why are you here? What message are you trying to give me? Why is this shame coming up? And then I wrote down this question: where did it learn that I should feel shame for slowing down and resting? Where did I where did I learn that? Who taught me that? Where is this coming from? And once you find the source, you will be more likely able to focus on letting that shit go. That's what I wrote. That shame is coming from somewhere and possibly someone. So it might have been something that you learned from one of your parents, might have been something that you learned just from society in the US here. Uh, this reminds me of the book Rest is Resistance. If you haven't read it before, it's an amazing book about rest and how rest is actually one of the best ways to resist the system. We're really taught to just keep going. And in a lot of ways, so many ways now, I see how that exhausts us. And when we're exhausted, we're much more easily manipulated or controlled, right? If you can think about, I can think of all the times when I've been so tired where like I just will go with the flow or go with, if I'm out with friends or out with somebody, I'll just do whatever it is that they want to do because I don't even have the capacity to make another decision right now. And so when I started to realize that and I read that book, it really helped me recognize like, yeah, no, I want to be in that place. I need it. And I want to be in that place where I'm able to make good, clear decisions. And that place always comes from a place of rest. When I know, like when I'm not overworking and I'm getting plenty of sleep, I've had plenty of water, I've had food that day, I make really good decisions and I can make really clear, level headed decisions. So I would first have a conversation with that shame and ask, what are you here to teach me? Where did you come from? And then you can work on letting that go. And once you let that go, then you can reprogram your brain with what you want it to say. And so what I've been doing for the last couple of years is removing and releasing a lot of old beliefs like that because I noticed after listening to the tapes in my head, like as things would come up and the more awareness that I got, I was able to be aware of like, what are these things that I'm repeating to myself? Ooh, okay, there's something about my body image. I'm going to make note of that. I want to remove that limiting belief. And then I would add into my affirmations for the day something about positive body image, like, uh, I love my body. I love how my body functions well. I love how my body looks. And so I have about a minute and a half affirmations that I am currently programming myself with. And I've recorded them on my phone and I listen to the recording every day after I get up. So usually I get up, I'll get some water, and then I make my bed is the first thing I do. Sometimes I get out of this habit, but in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten back into it. And while I'm making my bed, I play my affirmations on my phone because it's the first thing I want to hear when I get up in the morning. It's when our brain is most open to new impressions. It's most open to new information. And so it's a fantastic time to play your affirmations right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep. So that's what I would focus on really is getting curious with this. So less of a focus on bouncing back, more of a focus on getting curious about why this came up and how you got to this place. Because I found that the more that I've let go of and the more that I've reprogrammed myself with positive self-talk, the less shame comes up. Doesn't mean it never comes up, but it's way less frequent than it used to be. And so it's much easier to slide into a place from feeling overwhelmed to, oh, okay, I see what happened, acceptance. Then I go back to balance and then I kind of move my way up to peace, if that makes sense. So the emotion code, which I've talked about on a previous episode, is also super helpful for this. So I would highly recommend that. That might be, yeah, that might be my number one book recommendation for the year for 2024. That has changed my life. Because now, if something comes up after I examine it, like this, let's shame, for instance, I would then go to the emotion code and say, and I would ask about any particular situation. So let's say I was overwhelmed by spending too much time with a particular person. I would go to the emotion code and say, do I have any trapped emotions related to this person? And this would give me information about what else to ask about with the emotion code, because there might be some stuck emotions that I'm not even aware of related to the situation. And so then I can use the emotion code to let those go. And it helps me move on and move through them even faster. So thank you for that question. That was an excellent one. All right, quantum theory. Um, for the person who submitted this, you make me laugh because I think you know quite well that I am not a scientist. Physics and what I take, pre-calculus, it was very challenging for me. As logical as I am, I'm very much, was conditioned to be a left brain person. I think we all are. We're conditioned to think very logically. So there's a very logical part of me, but then there's another part of me that I've been digging into more these last couple of years. And it's more of a like letting go of the logical and just going with what I feel. And so I'm going to give you a basic explanation that I received after, like, I had a general knowledge of quantum theory, but because of this question, I literally did some research, listened to a couple YouTube videos to see if I could get any other examples to share. So, quantum physics is the study of matter and energy at the most fundamental level. So, the way that I think about it is when we were in school and we were in science, I remember studying atoms, right? Like, and I even brought up a picture on my computer to like have in front of me as I'm sharing about this. And so if you think about the model of the atom, like I remember I had to make one in science. You have the nucleus, you have electrons around the nucleus, and then inside of the nucleus, you have protons and neutrons. And that was as far as the study went. When I think back to my high school days, we didn't study like, well, then what's inside of the protons? What's inside of the neutrons? At some point, the science was limited. Like people were not able to look beyond that, right? Quantum theory is the study of that, the study of what's beyond what we can see in the protons and neutrons. That is the simplest way that I have explained it to myself. And so, an example of classical physics is a ball rolling down a ramp, a planet orbiting the sun, and a car accelerating on a road. It's all stuff that we can see with our eyeballs. An example of quantum physics is the electron behavior within an atom, the photoelectric effect, and quantum entanglement. So you see how those two things are very different. The quantum physics you can't see with your physical eye. And so I think that's why people have had such a hard time understanding it. And then I also loved a couple of the videos that I saw were so fantastic at talking about it because they basically said uh, a lot of people describe it in different ways, and there's not one way of explaining it that people all agree on. But I just really like simplifying things because the simpler I can make it, that gives me a better way to describe it and to communicate it. And I really like being able to communicate things to other people clearly. A couple of the other things that I wrote down, let's see. So subatomic particles, so you have the atom, and then again, you remember you have the nucleus, and you have the neutrons and the protons within the nucleus. Those are also called subatomic particles. So they're beneath, within the atom. Subatomic particles can act as both waves and particles. Hold on to your seats now, okay? So particles meaning like if you imagine like a little ball, they can act like a little ball and they can also act like a wave of energy. They talk to each other faster than the speed of light. This is all stuff that I got, by the way, after researching it. They can decide to randomly move. Particles can exist in multiple places at the same time. We are limited as to how much knowledge we can have about their state. So they don't always tell us everything about themselves. This is just baked into nature and our reality. We aren't going to know everything we wish we could know about subatomic particles. This is something that this guy was talking about in a video that I really liked. And so I think the reason that you asked this question, correct me if I'm wrong, person, is because I talk a lot about energy healing, and and thus because I'm talking about energy healing, quantum physics plays into this. So if I'm on Zoom, for example, and giving an energy healing to someone who's on the East Coast, let's say in Massachusetts, I can settle into my energy, ground down into the earth, and ask with intention to connect to their energy, and I will be connected. Because I'm thinking about them and I'm literally imagining, when I do this as an energy healer, I imagine a cord between my stomach and theirs, and the cord usually has a color, which also tells a message. And then I focus on whatever area they might be in pain with, and I send energy there. Using myself as a conduit, I imagine energy going into their body. And so essentially, if you think about this from the quantum theory point of view, I'm sending little particles of little particles of atoms into their energy field and giving them a job to do. And so that's where quantum entanglement comes. Like, when you're thinking about someone and then all of a sudden they just text you, probably means that they were thinking about you first. Or maybe you were thinking about them, they got the message and decided to text you or call you or whatever. So this is essentially the idea behind quantum physics, quantum theory. And so I love this question in many ways because it challenges me to be able to explain it. And also because I've realized that there's a part of me that has come to accept things without having to know all of the whys. Why does this happen? How does this happen? I no longer need to know all of that. And I now have a lot more faith in things that I don't see than I used to. And the reason for that is because I am a researcher and I like data and I like proof. When I think about energy healing as an example, I have gone after evidence for the last like 8 years. And I have now seen so much evidence that this is real, that it has an impact and that it works, that now I have zero doubts about it. I don't need to know the details. And so having that kind of solid faith feels really, really good. I mean, it brings to me this deep peace that I haven't been able to experience before. Because oftentimes in the past, not knowing all the answers or not knowing how something worked has given me anxiety. But now, having just let go of control a bit and let go of that needing to know how it happens, I've been able to understand that it does really work and see it work, see the impact on someone's body. Even if I can't physically see the energy moving across the air into that person's body, I can now see the energy moving through their body. Sometimes when the body moves like this, as someone's getting an energy healing, that's energy moving. So thank you for this question. I think it's a fantastic one. And I think I also, one of the videos that I watched mentioned how Oftentimes people say, quantum physics, quantum theory is such a hard topic to discover or a hard topic to understand. And he was like, I wish people would stop saying this because I think we almost set ourselves up for failure by saying this is such a hard thing that not everybody can learn it. And he's like, everybody can learn this. You just have to be able to talk about it and communicate it in a way that makes sense to people. That's all. And so I love the way that he broke it down. All right. If you have any follow-up questions about that one, let me know. All right. The fourth question, healing the money wound, how to heal a money wound. Okay. So first, some people are probably wondering, what is a money wound? And so if you've ever talked to an energy healer before, or anybody who works in the spiritual field as a practitioner of some sort, sound healer, Reiki practitioner, all the different ways in which you can work with the body and with energy. Um, a money wound is essentially a negative way of thinking about money. So perhaps you grew up believing or grew up around a group of people that believed that money was scarce. Money only came to you if you worked too hard for it. If you worked super, super hard, worked more hours than the average person, then you will get money. Or people who have money are greedy. Or money is something, even find myself not wanting to say this out loud because I have worked so hard at programming myself around money in a positive way. But if you find that, money is dirty, money means you're greedy, money means, you care more about yourself than you do other people. Any of those things, any of those beliefs around money that really limit you, meaning they contract you, they keep you small, that would be a money wound. That's how I think of it. And so, how to heal a money wound. So, here are some things that I wrote down. You want to build more awareness into your day. Notice what you think about as you pay your bills. So, one of the first things that I did when I began to address this is, I had started to address it about 3 years before I started my business, so 2017, because I recognized that I was just I was learning the bare minimum to get by. Like I had bought a house at that point, and I had a basic understanding of like what went in and what went out of my accounts, but I didn't understand much more than that. And I also just wasn't comfortable with it. I wasn't as comfortable talking about it. I noticed that other people didn't like to talk about it. And I really wanted to reach a different level where I could start a conversation about money in public with other women, especially, and we could talk about it. Because I think one of the best ways to tackle oppression and to tackle the systems that don't serve us is to speak about it in public openly. And so, as an example of that, when I taught my class um, called Executive Assistants Perspective Through the Lens of an Executive Assistant, which was a class about real estate agents and how to best operate with a director of operations or an admin, I would openly share what my salary was. And I would share how I got to that. And I was, I think, one of the few people who would actually share that kind of information in public and openly. And my perspective on that basically was, look, at some point I'm going to die. And I don't care if you guys know how much money I make. Just don't. Like, it's not helping me by not talking about it. And it's not helping any of you by me not talking about it. So let's just get over ourselves and put it out there. Because I really was a believer I really was passionate about admin making a living wage, not just in the real estate industry, but across industries. Most admin are women. 93% of people in those positions are women, and they're just historically underpaid. And so I really wanted to be a part of the solution. And I knew that part of that was speaking out loud. And so that's what started my journey into looking more at my relationship with money. And then when I started my business, I had no choice but to really dive into it and confront it. And so I started being more aware every day of, oh, wow, when I go to buy my groceries, this is what I'm thinking. Like I'm thinking, oh my God, do I have enough? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, do I have enough in my bank? Oh my God, do I have enough? Oh my God, oh, that's painful. Oh God, I don't want to look. Like that would be my self-talk. Or when I went in to log into my bank account, I would notice that my body would tense up. And so start to build awareness more into your day, week, month, and notice the things that you are saying in your mind or the way your body feels when you pay your bills, when you buy dinner, when you're out getting a coffee. Whenever money comes, the energy of money comes around, notice what you're thinking about it. Notice your reaction, your response to someone who has a lot of money. And then someone who doesn't have any money. How do you feel about someone who's a millionaire? What are your feelings that come up about that? Like, ooh, like I want money, but I don't want that much because that would make me greedy. What's your feelings about someone who has no money? What comes up there? All of these are clues. All of these are clues as to what you were programmed to believe about money. And all of this is important because you have to get to the root of where all this began in order to change it. Okay. And this is with anything, not just money. So, kind of like I just spoke about when it came to, we were talking about shame. So, before you know what you want to program yourself with, you have to figure out what are your beliefs that you want to remove. And so, your subconscious brain runs 95% of your day. This is why rewiring it is so critical, because if you don't draw awareness to it, it'll just keep going. And the same things will keep happening. So, it's a good thing to think about. So, building this awareness so you can have a better understanding of your money beliefs. One of the ways that I've really worked on this is using a book called The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease. He is hilarious. So he's a comedian who has recently, in the last couple of years, turned to becoming a speaker, and he's incorporated a lot of his beliefs around spirituality and energy. And so he has this activity. Just one example I want to give you. This book is full of examples that I oftentimes will give my clients to do. He gives this activity called "Before you do that, do this." And what he wants you to do is he wants you to take a 24-hour leap. And he says, I want to give you the opportunity to tap into the vibration of possibility and discover all the things that could go really well in the next 24 hours. Our nervous system has collected an insane amount of possibilities from our mind on how things could potentially go wrong. Isn't that true? That's how most of us are used to thinking. We think about how we could run or how we could ruin a blind date by talking too much, and about how amazing the band Chicago is, or how we might mess up an interview by throwing up on the desk because we ate top ramen for breakfast. These negative possibilities are all things that are within the boundaries of your old story, based on your past experience. In this exercise, you have the opportunity to go beyond the boundaries of your old story and into the new top ramen, vomit-free level of possibility. So write down at least 100 possibilities of things that could go amazingly well in the next 24 hours. Write down things that are way beyond the scope of what you usually let yourself see as possible. Just pausing right there to say this is a fantastic activity to do around the new year. People find it really difficult to write 100 things down of what could happen in the next 24 hours. And it's really interesting to see what comes up because I see a lot of people limit themselves. A lot of limiting thoughts come up. You can write down that it's possible in the next 24 hours to come up with $1 million idea. It's possible that you could meet a new best friend in the next 24 hours. It's possible that you could write the first 5 chapters of a best-selling book in the next 24 hours. All of those things are actually possible. Because you can see it in your mind, that means there is some avenue available where life can provide the energy, the information, and the inspiration to make all of those things happen. So this exercise will help you begin to open up to these possibilities and raise your awareness so that when a possibility shows up, you're on the right channel to notice and to allow it into your experience. So, in other words, if you're not exploring all the possibilities of what's possible in any moment, in any given time, it's like a block that you have up around your head. It's like you have these glasses on that, like, oh, I only know that these 5 things are possible in the next 24 hours. I know it's possible that I'm going to make this dinner tomorrow. I know it's possible that I'm going to see this person tomorrow. And then you only think of those 5 things all the time, rather than opening up your mind to all the things that could actually possibly occur. And all of a sudden, when something comes into your perspective, into your vision, you're like, oh, that is a possibility. Look how that just showed up. And it like opens up this, so you don't have tunnel vision anymore. It like opens up this lens to where you're allowing all of a sudden all these new things to come into possibility, right? But it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't opened your mind to what's possible. So after you build this awareness, you start to build new neural pathways in your brain. And this affects your thoughts, your words, and thus your actions, right? So if you're looking for a process, here's how I know some people love a process. I love a process just like anyone else. And I've also noticed and recognized that every process for every one of us is probably going to be slightly different because we're all unique. But here's what I came up with. 1, build daily awareness into your life. Notice what comes up for you. Identify your beliefs about money that are currently running your life. Choose new beliefs that you want to build into your brain. And then 4, do whatever you need to do to build new habits around your money. Develop a relationship with your money, make money dates. When you log into your bank account, repeat a mantra, pause, breathe deeply, remind yourself that you are safe. Create affirmations that you listen to daily. Changing your thoughts, actions, and behaviors take time. Repetition and integration is key here. So I've been doing these affirmations now for 7 years, and they've changed over time. As new things have come into my perspective, I've been like, oh, I want to add that in. I want to add in something about how my legs have really good circulation, because in the past I've had varicose veins, and so I've been working on healing those. And so I recorded new affirmations that included that. I've recorded more affirmations that include more about money, and I don't consistently, all the time do this every single day. But like right now, I've been doing it for the past like 2 weeks again, and then I might take like a month off and then come back to it. But I always come back to it, and I find that if I can do this consistently for months at a time, then I started to notice that my environment changes and things happen differently. So that's my process around that question about the money wound and how to heal the money wound. It's just a consistent focus over time. There's no shortcuts. So, all right, the last thing I want to do for you guys is I want to pull a card to give us a message for the rest of December. So I'm going to be publishing this episode on the 12th of December, which is also 12/12, Portal Day. And so I'm asking about what message do we have for us for the rest of December? What should we focus on? I'm going to ask that question. What should our collective focus on for the rest of December? All right. Interesting. We got card number 33, Door to Romance. New beginnings in love. Whether you're looking for a new relationship or just more love in the relationship you're in, this door with a heart opens onto a new beginning in your experience. A new love may be arriving, and you are being brought together by a strong, resonant connection. This may be a call from a past life, or it may be a new tenderness about to bloom into heartfelt affection. This relationship already exists in energetic potential, so when this card appears in your spread, make sure you are projecting the kind of self-loving energy that you want to receive from others. Be aware that the universe returns your self-caring treatment to you. It's ready to open that door. Are you? And then the affirmation is, as I open the door to my own self-love, I attract more and more loving tenderness to me. Oh, I love that. So this kind of speaks to some of what I talked about today in terms of thinking about quantum theory, quantum entanglement, and like what you put out there, and healing your money wound and talking to yourself and building new awarenesses. So how you love yourself really does matter. And how you love yourself will be also reflected in the people you choose to have around you. So choose to love yourself and love yourself well. Love yourself by giving yourself plenty of water, plenty of rest, plenty of time to recoup, plenty of time to just be. Treat yourself in a way that you would for someone that you deeply loved and cared for. And that is what you'll find in the people around you. I think that's actually a beautiful message for the rest of 2024. All right. Thank you again for these questions. This was super interesting to dig into. And if there's anything else that comes up from this episode, please put it in a comment on one of my social media channels, if I could speak, or send me a message and let me know if there's another question you'd like me to talk about in another episode. I love doing things like this. I love tapping into what you guys are curious about and what you want to hear more about. Yeah, and I love hearing from you. Every single message means a lot to me. All right, talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening.